I didn't see most of that stuff. I was living like in dreamland. You know, you had the choice between this set of books or a box of Pampers.
Yeah.
And you go with the books.
That's right. Sometimes people imagine that they can simply approach the hadith, like open up al-Bukhari and pick one hadith out of it and then just run with it.
Many people, they think that it's a modern day thing. People have been abusing the text.
Sacrifice is the name of the game.
Different land, different country, you know, things are very different. You can't seek knowledge for stingy, selfish purposes.
Bismillah, alhamdulillah, salatu welcome back to Imam Talk, where we sort of bring to light sort of the Imam's perspective about personal leadership and community life. And we've got a very, very special guest. Needs no introduction, Mufti Muneer, Philly's own, and you know, somebody who I've tremendously, for the amount of time that we spent together, which is very little, I've benefited tremendously from you. So I'd ask Allah to put it in your scale and day of judgment. Continue to bless you and the dawah that you do.
You too, Akhi. Jazakallah khairan for the kind words.
And this is honestly, this is the first time we've seen each other in 8 years.
Yeah.
So this is like a wonderful excuse.
Allah Akbar. That's right.
To have a reunion.
That's right. That's right.
And that almost is relevant to the topic at hand, because, you know, once you come back to the States from abroad or studying whatever program of study you're doing, you know, a lot of us get overburdened, and a lot of us put our head down and then do our thing. And it can be difficult. It can be difficult to kind of even keep the same relationships or friendships that it was, that we had before, that maybe we thought that we would have. But we'll get to that, I guess. But first, maybe if you could give us a little bit of insight into your path to community leadership. Was this something that you had planned way out? Was this something that sort of was thrust upon you? Was it something? How did you end up finding yourself on the path to becoming a community leader in America?
Understood. Play it. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Thank you once again. I really mean that. Alhamdulillah, for the invite, for reaching out. I'm glad to be your guest, and I'm happy that you're my host. Jazakumullah khairan to you and your whole team. And may Allah continue to bless you and keep you upon the path. Ameen. May Allah allow people to benefit from you even more.
When
I was younger, I would say I think it's fair to say that I always adored and quote unquote idolized the Imam position. You know, as a young youth, Jumu'ah was always special. You know, the khutbah, the khutbah al-hajjah, you know, the turban, the beard, everything, just how the Imam looked, how he carried himself, you know, the respect, the love that he got. You get what I'm trying to say? And just the concept of, you know, that was, you know, Imam. In the community, it was nothing higher than that. There was no peak or you know, perch higher than that. Imam. That was, you know, the spiritual guide of the community. He's responsible for the people's souls by Allah's permission.
Of course.
And of course, there are other responsibilities, physical, mundane, you know, worldly responsibilities that the Imam has. So that's something I think I always looked up to when I was younger. And when I started seeking knowledge and taking it seriously, and really becoming you know, infatuated and obsessed with ilm and dawah and talabul ilm, seriously, I still was in high school, and I consider myself a student of knowledge, and I was studying, I was learning, whether I had a teacher or whether I was teaching myself, and I knew that's what I wanted to be in life, nothing else. And, you know, obviously from the books that you memorize and you start off with, you understand about, you know, acting upon knowledge and calling people to that knowledge, propagating that knowledge. So I think a bit of it is my own personal dreams and ambitions. And I think a bit of it is just knowing the responsibility and the only reason why you're seeking knowledge on this level. We're talking about, you know, high octane. We're not just learning the basics. You're studying systematically. You're memorizing books. You can't seek the knowledge for stingy, selfish purposes. So being someone who gives back to the community on any level, whether it's an imam, local resident scholar, the different titles, different terms, different hats people wear. I don't think it's a choice. And not to jump the gun, but if I could say any violation or infringement upon the sacred knowledge in this culture is the attitude that many younger brothers, they started getting I'm not dealing with that. I'm not an imam. I'm not a scholar. I don't know. You know, I go overseas.
Shy away from the responsibility.
Yeah, and even look down upon it. I've seen brothers look down upon it. Like being an imam is you know, a lowly thing.
Right.
You know, I'm a scholar. I'm a this graduate. I'm a this candidate. He can lead the salat and read Surah Zalzala and Adiyat. You know, my qualifications are above that. I've seen this and I've heard this. And if it's not scorning it, then brothers fearing it and, you know, getting becoming afraid of getting caught up the administration wars. Okay,
Politics.
right. The Nisa, the women scandal. Me too, this and that.
Right.
You get what I'm
Yep.
trying to say? Being refuted, jealousy, all of the different obstacles and pitfalls of dawah. I've seen brothers shy away from it, in which they think they can study overseas for 6, 7, 8 years and just live a comfortable life for the rest of their life. You know, and I'm not taking shots at anybody or talking about anybody. I'm talking about in general. So that was something that I felt was erroneous. It can't be done. You don't have a choice. Even if you're not a formal imam, you have to take some type of leadership responsibility with what Allah Azza wa Jalla has given you. So that would be my answer. Part personal and part professional.
And if there's one thing I think that's a benefit to extract from what you said, not every community is the imam treated like that, like the community you grew up in. And so sometimes in some communities the imams look down on. And he's not top dog, right? He's not the highest
You are an
person.
employee.
That's right. And so I want to highlight for the viewer, like, look at what happens in a community when you treat the imam like that. When they have that authority and they have that perch,
that's right.
You create this aura around
That's right.
that people gravitate to, not in some sort of cultish, like whatever way, but in a way of aspiration.
Oh yeah.
Now you got young people that want to pursue that path because they're communicated to, not explicitly, but implicitly, they're communicated to that is something to aspire to and that's something to achieve.
Yeah, that's a beautiful extraction. No doubt, versus just, you know, he's just somebody who's just paid by the masjid, and they control him, versus, you know, looking up, like you said, you know, having a living example of a role model to be like.
So let's talk about, I mean, you referenced it or alluded to it, you know, when you start this journey, especially if you go abroad, sacrifice is the name of the game. What were some of the sacrifices that you found that you were forced to make, or you were up against, or some of the things that you were tested with in your talab and before you came back?
First and foremost is family. That's fact. You have family members, you know, I'm not talking about wife and children. I'm talking about, like, you know, mother, father, brother, sister. You're going to have people. I had people that were very supportive. I'm talking like very supportive. You know, I mentioned this before. My mother, you know, she was, you know, directly pushing me.
MashaAllah.
And she was telling me, don't listen to anyone.
Allahu Akbar.
This is for you. This is what Allah gave you. Allah blessed you. Do you. Don't listen to no naysayers. And my father, my late father, may Allah have mercy upon his soul, he was more indirect, more subtle. He was more of in the beginning, he was more of a naysayer. And he was more of a critic and a skeptic, making sure that I had everything lined up. Like, are you sure about this? Did you think about this? Are you ready? Did you prepare about this? And obviously back then, you know, you might feel a little static, but now you appreciate it.
Yeah.
Because he was getting me ready, not for the roses and the hugs and the kisses.
That's right.
But the real world. And the world that is unpleasant and unforgiving. So, you know, he got me sharp. He sharpened, you know, my mind, and he pushed me indirectly. I had other family members that were very supportive, and then other family members that were, you know, skeptical, and friends that are like, oh no, you know, blah, 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 blah. You got to wait. Don't go yet. Such and such, such and such. So I think, and dealing with many other younger brothers, that's one of the most common problems is I want to be a scholar of Islam professionally, but my family says I have to be a doctor. I have to be an engineer. My family says I have to do this, or why are you going overseas with those people? They don't like you, whatever the issue may be. So I think that you got to be willing to, you have to be willing to sacrifice whatever it is in the cause of ilm. And from that is, you know, the relationship with certain people. And obviously we don't want to, you know, cut off the you know, the ties of kin, but you get the point. Like,
definitely
you got a fork in the road. So definitely family, relationships, of course, money, you know, trying to be devoted. I think any college student is going to be, you know, if he's full time, he's going to be, you know, in need of wealth because you're not working that much. But you're talking about going overseas, thousands of miles, a different land, different country, you know, things are very different. So just being patient with having little and not working and spending all your money on books.
Yeah.
That's what we did, you know, recklessly. I mean, it was literally, I could tell you stories you wouldn't believe, you know. And alhamdulillah, when I got to Medina, I caught, you know, some of the good old days, as they say, even if it was the tail end of the real good old days in which building up a library was a must. So, you know, we would spend money on books, man. It was times we didn't have food. You know, it was times in which, you know, you had the choice between this set of books or a box of Pampers.
Yeah.
And you go with the books.
That's right.
It's a no-brainer.
Start eating ketchup packets.
Yeah. So being patient upon poverty. And number 3, definitely friendship. Friendship, like the family. You know, you're gonna have friends, people that you thought were friends or homies or whatever, and anything can separate you. Jealousy. Someone envies you, you may envy someone. Two-way street, human being. Or the concept of, you know, you may differ and you know, you see things differently. You know, you grow, you mature. Oh, you ain't keeping it real. You this, you that, you with him, your friends, and you got to split ways. And that friend may turn into an enemy to you. You know what I'm saying? That's all a part of your growth and your maturity. And if you're not willing to sacrifice everything for talabul ilm, it isn't but so far you can go. That's my philosophy. You got to be willing to pay whatever is necessary if you really aspire to do something and leave an impact, a crater in the ground versus just a dent.
You got to burn your boat.
Yeah. Cortez, 100%. There's no going back to Spain. We either conquer them or we die.
Yeah.
And it's just that simple.
What were some of the, you know, when you go abroad, and so just for reference for the audience, so you went to Medina, you went a couple other places for.
I went to Medina in 2002. I was 18, fresh out of high school. And that's a story in itself with my grandma, my granddad. You know, they asked me what I wanted to do. I had money saved up for college. They saved money from you know, for my education. And this was, you know, right after 9/11. Like, it was like hot, fresh.
Yeah.
You know? And I said, I want to go to Saudi Arabia. She's like, what? Excuse me, where's Saudi Arabia? What's Saudi Arabia? You sure? And I remember as I sat in the master bedroom of my grandmom's house, the TV was on, and guess what was on TV? CNN, BBC. You know, this when everything was churning. Iraq, Afghanistan, stuff was getting ready to really like change. So she was like, you don't see what's on the TV? Like, Muhammad? I said, yeah, I want to go to Saudi Arabia. So it smacked her in the face. She was like, oh, okay, like, and she basically said, like, look, you've been a good grandson. You know, you haven't brought us problems and drama like, you know, a lot of other teenagers and most other teenagers do. You know, a few bumps and hiccups in the road, but you're a pretty solid guy. It's your money, no problem. You know, she said, we respect that. We don't have to agree or not, but as long as you stay positive, you take the money, you do whatever you want. So I had money from that. I had some money that I saved up from working. I was a barber, cutting hair at the time. You know what I mean? And I just went to Medina. Then I came back and I went to Yemen for a year, alhamdulillah. And I was getting very comfortable in Yemen. I was going to stay in Yemen, actually.
Which year was that around?
This was, I think, maybe 2004, if I'm not mistaken. So Medina, the first year was 2002. I came back in 2003. I stayed in America for maybe a year, give or take. And then I went to Yemen, and I was going to stay in Yemen, actually, because I was benefiting tremendously. I was learning. And when I went to Yemen, it was like hadith.
Yeah.
You know, the Arabic, everything was just flying. But then I got the phone call that I got accepted in Medina because I had made Umrah a second time. First time, 2002, I applied. Then, you know, the list came out, and I didn't get accepted. So I was heartbroken, literally. You know, that was my dream. I was like crushed. You know what I'm saying? I remember I cried that day. It was in the summertime. They're like, no, you didn't make the list. I'm like, man, I was 18. I did an interview in all Arabic, no translator. You know, I'm like, I should get in. I should be drafted.
Right. Yeah.
I didn't get drafted. So I was heartbroken. I was crushed, literally. But that didn't stop me. I kept studying and kept staying busy, kept staying positive. And actually, I was an Imam when I think I was 19. If I'm not mistaken, that next summer. Then I went to Yemen for a year. After making Umrah again, I applied the second time. And then after a year in Yemen, about 9 months, I got the phone call that I was accepted to Medina. So I was at a fork in the road, and I had to make a decision. Stay in Yemen, and, you know, Yemen is Yemen. I wasn't in the worst part, but I definitely wasn't like a paradise. Yemen was gritty. You get what I'm trying to say? So in order to get your feet established, you want to take some time. So in the middle of establishing everything, the call to come back, I had to leave Yemen, go to America, to go to Saudi. So I had to pray and I had to, like, think about it. So I asked one older brother, and he lost his life. SubhanAllah, he got murdered. May Allah have mercy on him. He was there in Yemen studying. He was old. He was studying. And I asked him one night, I said, what do you think I should do, Sheikh? Stay in Yemen or go to Medina? And he told me frankly, he said, man, follow your dreams. He said, don't even think about it. Yemen is good. This and that. He says, don't even think about it. Go to Saudi. Go to Medina. Don't even waste any time pondering. Do you? And then he rekindled that dream that I had. So I left Yemen, went back home, and this was before the virtual age. Everything was paperwork.
Yeah,
you had to go to DC. Yeah, I remember the lady's name.
Nasreen?
Before her.
Before her.
Yeah, her salaf. You see what I'm saying to you? I think her name was Fatima. Okay, Fatima Qureshi, I think her name was.
There's always only one, so everybody knows.
Yeah, so you had to deal with her directly, and everything was in paperwork. It was no email, well, none of that. You know what I mean? So I went and got the visa, and I went to Saudi, and it took long, and I got to Saudi later. And I joined Kulliyat al-Hadith, alhamdulillah, no language program. I went to Kulliyat al-Hadith maybe 2-3 weeks later, and I was sitting in the back of the class, and I was killing them. First year, raising my hand. And all the other guys, I was the only American in my class. I don't think there were any Westerners in my class. There was another brother from Canada, but he was in another room. I was like the only Westerner in my class. So I kept raising my hand. People were looking, who the heck is this guy? You know what I'm saying? We didn't see him. He didn't come from the beginning. He's answering all these questions. He's people started like, what is this guy? So, I made friends, and there you go.
Alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah. You know
so
what I mean?
Back up just for 1 second. The first time you were in Medina, so you did, this was not your official capacity as a student. So what was that like? You were just like crashing and studying on yourself? Or like...
Yeah. Well, it was a bunch of brothers there that were students. They were in the language program. They made one of them was in a college, and their wives were in America. So they were all bachelors. So they were bachelor pad. It was a bachelor pad, and they were from Philly. You know what I'm saying? May Allah reward those brothers.
I mean,
I'm definitely indebted, to those brothers. And I knew a couple of them or whatever. And basically I came made Umrah. And, we all linked up. And my visa, my mentor, Sheikh Musa, may Allah bless him, he asked Brother Jamal, may Allah reward him well. It was his apartment. He said, can Mufti stay? So Jamal was like, of course. Like, what do you mean? Yeah, he can stay. And I had an Umrah visa, but I was like, Bismillah. Well, you got to take it.
That's right.
You know what I'm saying? So I didn't have no visa. My visa expired. I didn't have no stipend. We spent all our money on books.
Yeah.
A couple of thobes, some food here and there, but the money ran out.
Yeah.
And we was just living. Like literally just living. You know what I'm saying? So I would go to the university in the daytime when my visa still was good. I visited the language program a few times, sat in a couple of classes. Things were different back then, but I couldn't study in the university, and I would go to the Prophet's Masjid, in the local masjids. And I'm not praising myself or nothing, just keeping it real. I would stay up at night. I was nocturnal, and I would just teach myself. And I would, this is talking about tapes now, not CDs.
Yeah.
So I would have a transcribing machine, and I would write down all of the tapes, all the lectures of the Mashaykh, all night long. And I would benefit from the lecture. I would improve my hand speed, my writing skills, and I just would teach myself what I couldn't find a teacher for. So that was for about maybe 9 or 10 months. I returned in the summer. We had to leave. We had to get out the apartment or whatever the case may be, and put together some money for a ticket. And as I was leaving. Before I had left, Sheikh Musa, he said, listen to me. He said, when you get in the airport, he said, just listen to me. They're going to look at your passport and say, what shahada? What is this? Yeah. You're like 6-7 months past, He said, don't argue with them, but just tell them, kuntu atlubul ilm. Wallahi, his exact words say, I was seeking knowledge. Don't say nothing else. So I was in the airport. I believe it was Jeddah. The guy, he took on passport. Shahada Sheikh. Like, and obviously stuff was very different. It wasn't defined. Things, it was very different.
Loose. Things are loose back then.
Very different. Wallahi al-azim, I swear I lied to you now. I said to him those exact words. I said, Wallahi, kuntu atlubul ilm. He closed my passport, said, go ahead. Just like that. So Allah made it easy. So that year in 2002, I was 18. I didn't have, no formal study like school or like, stipend or nothing. I was just doing my own thing. And I was just trying to seek knowledge. I was hungry, and that's what I wanted to do.
And that's a tremendous benefit. I think anybody who's listening, one of the most common questions I get, I'm sure you get as well, how do I start? Right? People who are, they have aspirations to study Islam in a systematic way, in a rigorous way. And, you just start. you throw yourself into it.
That's right. Take the leap.
Yeah, exactly. And it is sink or swim, and you got to be, maybe greedy is a little bit of not the right word we want, but opportunistic.
That's right.
Right. And if you get the chance to go somewhere or do something or whatever, you got to be willing to sacrifice and take that leap, and you're only going to benefit.
Small window opportunity.
That's right. Yeah, exactly. And because people don't realize how much has to align, right, in order to be able to study abroad. Because how many people went abroad and then, their father got ill or whatever, or something happened, or they're responsible. They're responsible for dependents and things like that. They have to come back early. Your window of time, I almost compare being a talib ilm to almost like a professional athlete. There's a lot of similarities, and that's one similarity, is that there's talent, that's one thing, but then there's also opportunity. There's who you know.
Injuries,
exactly.
That's right.
There's some people out there who are, maybe better than LeBron or crazy or whatever, but
it didn't happen. That's right.
Didn't happen for some reason, right? And so if you find yourself in that position where you got the opportunity, you got your health, you don't have anything holding you back, you got to take the dive.
That's right. That's right. You have to. Exactly. Because it comes and then that's it. Exactly. Mm-hmm.
And the other thing that your story, I think, alerts people to is how many soft skills, or maybe let's say how many skills are involved with talib ilm that people don't, it's not on people's radar. People think that learning Arabic, for example, is just about, okay, you can sit in a lesson and listen and understand. Okay, that's one skill. Being able to take notes fast with your hand is one skill. Being able to type up an essay in Arabic is another skill. And, at least when we were coming up, nobody's necessarily holding your hand and telling you it's like, well, you got to work on this skill and this skill and that skill. You almost have to be very proactive and be like, well, how can I be more well-rounded? It's like listening is one thing. Writing is another thing. Typing is another thing.
It's like basketball.
Yeah. And so you can be a three-point shooter. Yeah,
that's
exactly.
Right. Rebounds, free throw shots, assists. All of that is a part of the legacy of this this two guard or this power forward or whatever. It's much more than just scoring. You know what I mean? Endurance, fourth quarter, overtime, and the coach or the players or the league, they can't give that to you. You gotta hone it yourself.
And you might be in a situation where, okay, you're not around big mashayikh, top dogs or whatever. So you some people, they might get discouraged and feel like, well, I can't necessarily do a certain thing. But stuff like that, you can do no matter where you are.
That's right.
You know what I mean? It's like building those writing skills, building those listening skills, building those, even now typing, is something that is something that, there's always something to work on.
That's right. That's right. You could be in a room on any location. That's between you and yourself. Absolutely.
Another thing I want to ask, because one of my experiences of going to Medina was that I had a certain understanding or preconceived notions about Islam, what studying knowledge would be like. And then once you meet the reality, you find out that it's maybe a little bit different than what you thought. Did you have any moments like that? Are there any sort of like before and after, or things that you thought were important that you learned were not as important as you thought, or things that weren't on your radar, you didn't think that they were important, and then upon study you figured actually they're really important?
Politics, but that came later on. I remember I still was in a bachelor's program, and I had a neighbor. He was from Yemen. He was good student knowledge, and he was trying to get into the master's program, and he ran into some difficulties. And he used to talk, he wore his emotions and stuff on his skin. So he would always, this happened to me. So he's like, oh, they didn't let me get in. They didn't. I got this test, blah, blah, So he made a statement once. We were sitting outside our apartment, and he was angry. He was very angry. And he said, Wallahi, he said, like somebody told me, إذا أردت أن ترى المشايخ فادخل الماجستير. He says, if you want to see the sheikhs, who they really are, go to the postgraduate, studies. Go to the masters, go to the doctors, and you'll really see the mashayikh. So I didn't, get what he was saying. And then through my journey, you realize, and it's not about talking about nobody or speaking down against nobody or praising myself. It's just saying what it is. You understand the importance of politics. It's like sports or show business, the show versus the business. The talent versus the political, financial the intrigue, the palace intrigue, right?
Yep.
The battles aren't won necessarily on the battlefield,
Yep.
but they're won in the
office.
That's right. The
pen.
office. That's right. You know what I'm saying? So you know, you learn how you got to maneuver, and how, you know, these scholars, they're human beings. And they have the ups and the downs of other human beings. Now, knowledge, we read this stuff, we fantasize, they're supposed to be superhuman.
Right.
The taqwa, the khashya, the wara, but humans are humans. So you learn this through maturity. You go straight. This is my work. This is my paper. This is my book. Everything should be good. But they say, no, you got to do this, talk to this one, meet him here. Sheikh, how you doing? You got to really butter up the toast. You get what I'm trying to say? But I'm like, what do you mean? I wrote it. Everything's...
There's a whole lot of butter needed.
Yeah. So you realize that, I definitely realized that a little too late in the game. You get what I'm trying to say? And there's certain things I did realize. I just like, I'm not doing that, man.
Yes.
I'm here to study. Exactly. I'm not here to butter no toast. You get what I'm trying to say? But at the end of the day, through maturity and through growth, you realize that a human being is a human being. And you can never, ever have so many or too many expectations for a human being. So this is something I think I learned. Other than that, I was happy. A lot of brothers, they would say different things about the college, about Saudi, about Medina. I didn't see most of that stuff. I was living like in dreamland. You know, the knowledge, the benefit, the bookstores. Just another thing I will say, I was very naive. I didn't know that the jealousy and the envy was that rampant like that.
Between the students?
Yeah.
And between the ulama? Or between
that's another level.
Right. That was something that surprised me.
Yeah.
Because I had heard about the students, and so I steered clear and kept my nose clean, and I just kind of kept my head down and did my thing. But I started seeing the jealousy between the ulama.
That's crazy.
And not everybody, alhamdulillah, but
you see it.
Surprise.
Shocking.
And then you find out that a lot of the refutations, a lot of the whatever, at the end of the day, it's just jealousy.
Absolutely.
It's not an ilmi issue in the aslan. It's just jealousy. That was shocking to me.
Yeah, and that's what turned on the probing light for your mistakes was my envy of you.
Mm-hmm. Yes, exactly.
Illegal search.
Well, so that's right.
You get what I'm trying to say? Why was I pulled over and stopped anyhow, except because of the profile? You get what I'm trying to say? So the envy and the nastiness of the envy, you know, like what Shakespeare say, you know, the greed-eyed monster, the cat, vicious, fangs and claws. So you see that, it's like, whoa. Like, I thought we was all, you know,
right,
cool in one run.
Ready to be Team Us.
We sharing one plate of literally
Adis.
Not even Adis yogurt is a baby.
Yeah, there you go.
And bread.
There you go.
One day we starving together, and the next day, Tom is this, and he like, whoa. Yeah. So that definitely was a shock. That was a wake up call, and it just got me to sharpen even more. Be sharp.
I want to ask you something that I haven't asked anybody else. But since, you know, we both experienced this reality, what do you think about the format of the education over there? Is it the fact, because it strikes me that, you know, Islamic University of Medina and other universities that are comparable, a very Western model. They don't teach you akhlaq. They don't teach you tazkiyah illa qalilan, right? It's like, except for a little bit. Is there something that we're doing wrong as an ummah when it comes to the holistic education of human beings, or is this just normal and we just got to deal with it? This is, you know, how it is.
I would say that's a very good question, and many people have fallen victim to this problem, and they went to different sides of extremism. The universities, the formal study is nothing.
Right.
Trash.
Yeah.
And then there are those. The world is based off of universities. You can't just be sitting in a circle. The sheikh is not going to teach you. He's not going to evaluate you, your grades, et cetera, et cetera. So I think first and foremost, the student of knowledge must have a threefold. He has to have three main tiers of his game plan. Tier A is the hilak, the circles, the traditional way of seeking ilm. Tier B is the university, the formal studies, GPA, school, grade, etc. Tier 3 is the library.
Yes, sir.
Your personal reading, no sheikh, no mentor, just you and the books. I think if you do all three with the dua and Allah's tawfiq, I don't see it's possible for you to lose. But if you take one, you get, you know, the benefit from it, but it's not going to be complete.
Yeah.
So combined arms element. right? Land, air, and sea. Mechanized warfare. It's not just people on the battlefield with clubs and swords, but it's Navy, aerial, all three, and they're all in coordination with each other now.
Right. Yeah.
When we're talking about how warfare changed, this is just a metaphor, how warfare changed, in which there is a coordinated strike. There's reconnaissance. The guys on the ground are moving based off of the intel from the sky, and the fortresses or the positions were battered down by the artillery from the sea, the big guns.
Yeah.
So sitting with the mashayikh, learning from them, and what you get the actual knowledge, you see the akhlaq, you see their positions, but you need their school, because we're living in 2023. You need that formal education, that white collar education. You do need that. You need people to evaluate you.
There you go. That's one of the biggest benefits.
No doubt. And you need teachers that sometimes aren't as, nurturing. We had different guys they were doing their masters.
Yep.
They were young whippersnappers. Or you find some guys, I remember this, wallahi, I remember, man, we had one teacher, he was a sheikh from Egypt, a doctor from Egypt. He was a tafsir scholar. And the first day he came to Qurit Hadith, I swear, the first day he said, and to me, he says, you guys are nothing. Just like that. He says, you guys, you think it is Qurit Hadith? He says, you're nothing. And I'm going to show you that you're nothing. Just like that. So everybody's not going to be a murabbi and come son.
Right. That's got to break
you. Yeah.
Welcome to the big leagues.
There you go. So sometimes those different teachers and professors that may have issues or different dispositions, that's needed. And last but not least, you got to be in the library. You got to make bath. And it's one of the biggest jumps that I had to make from bachelor's to master's.
Mm-hmm.
The mashaykh, they told us it's not just about hifd, it's about research, bath, nazar. You got to prove why this is rajih through your own research. So I think if you do all three, of course there are problems. Brothers coming from the language program, I never studied in the language program formally, but a lot of people complain, and they would say they went from ana min al hindi to tadrib rabi.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's something Tahir sat us down when we first got there, and he was like, you're not going to just survive based off of what the Mahad gives you.
Yeah.
You got to have your own, your program.
That's right.
And you got to supplement and do stuff outside. I mean, I went through Sharia, and you're learning Bidayat al-Mujtahid, right? Like in the Kulliyah.
Bidayat
al-Mujtahid, right? And ain't none of us Mujtahideen, right? So, he was like, so you're going to finish 2 books in fiqh before you get there, in the Mahad, and has some tadarruj so that
That's right.
You're not just signing up for a marathon tomorrow.
Olympic swimming.
Exactly.
From the kiddie pond.
Yeah.
Or
exactly.
pool, whatever.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So very. That's very important.
Yeah. So I think it can be done. But you got to work hard, and I think that the student, as much as the student is in need of the teacher's in need of the student. So just like you're looking for this murabbi, you're looking for this, old-fashioned mythical sheikh that you read about in the books.
Yeah.
Some of those mashaykh, they're looking for those old-fashioned students.
Right.
That are dedicated, that are devoted, and they realize, no doubt, that their time is near, and they're it's like a wealthy person that's generous. He wants to give the money,
right?
He wants to donate it, but it's got
to be the right person, the right cause.
Yeah. So the diligent student, I think he's always going to find that that father, grandfather type of scholar that is going to take him by the hand and teach him and guide him. So I think it's about how you carry yourself. And if you're with the wrong crowd, or if you don't have your head screwed on tight enough, or it's totally unhinged, you're going to become a victim and a statistic.
Yeah. And we've seen it. SubhanAllah.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Afia. Let's transition and pivot to, okay, you're coming back now. Community life, community leadership. There's also another transition there. There's also sort of an imaginary of what it's going to be like, and then there's the reality of what it is like. What was one thing that sort of, again, like you had some sort of imagination, and the reality was something that was different when you started being responsible for things, here stateside?
Well, firstly, I always was doing dawah. We were doing classes, khutbahs, we were translating stuff, before we went overseas. So I had a little more preparation. That's first and foremost. I think I was a bit more tempered. You know what I'm saying? As far as some other brothers that literally went from zero to, you're on the bench, third string quarterback, to
Super Bowl.
Right, fourth
Start the
quarter,
Super Bowl.
2 minutes left. You
2-minute drill.
yeah, you gotta, make that drive to score. So I had a lot more preparation than other brothers. So it wasn't like I was totally like green 100%. But as far as the things that I did have to learn in the field and experience the transition mentally. You got to mentally prepare yourself that you're still a student of knowledge, you're still studying, but at the same time you aren't.
Right.
And no matter how humble you are, you have to realize to an extent you made it.
Yeah.
You finished. You graduated successfully. Your studies aren't over by any means. You have to, keep seeking ilm. You have to learn more. But on paper, formally, you're
the guy.
Yeah, you got drafted.
Yep.
You're in the league now.
Yep.
It's a lot to improve and enhance on your game. Excuse me, but you're not in college anymore. You got the jersey with the cap.
Yeah.
So you got to accept that. All right. And that's hard sometimes because you're taught and you're drilled to be humble.
Yes.
And low. And it's not about being high and puffing yourself up, but you have to carry yourself as a leader.
Well, that's an interesting thing too, because I think a lot of people, I've had this experience as well. We underestimate sort of the need for authority, right? When we get into a community. And we knew in Saudi, right, that the humble game doesn't always get you respect.
No.
But we didn't necessarily expect that also stateside, right? So, we're like very, very hypersensitive to putting on airs or putting us in a position. We know we're nothing.
The danger of kibr
but there's another extreme.
That's right.
That's what we're trying to say. Like there's another extreme is that, if you act like, like you're nothing and then actually you create a vacuum.
And you get trampled upon.
And trampled upon with people with no training, with absolutely have no idea what they're talking
no
about.
No khashya
or think that they know what it is.
That's right. That's right.
That was something that I wasn't ready for.
That's an ongoing struggle to this very day. To this very day, you humbling yourself, and subhanAllah, I mentioned this in the way of the disciple. My personal manifesto, whatever, my training manual for seeking ilm. I mentioned this, and I call this the Titanic struggle. The Titanic struggle, in which Ibn al-Qayyim, may Allah have mercy on him, he said, وَحَقِيقَةُ التَّوَاضُعِ أَنْ لَا تَرَى لِنَفْسِكَ قِيمَةً. That is humility, is that you find no worth in yourself. But at the same time, this is mahfuz. This is this. You're the most knowledgeable person in the building.
Right.
There's no discussion about that. You get what I'm trying to say?
It's just facts. It's not kibber. It's just facts.
There are people. So how do I carry myself with the knowledge, knowing the danger and the power of the ilm, but at the same time, I'm nothing. I'm a servant. I'm a slave of Allah. I'm a sinner. I'm a poor servant. Nothing else. So that's a struggle in which you have too much of it. You fall into the pride, and the arrogance, and it's over once once your head is swelled up, it's done.
Yeah.
Or you fall into being weak and incapable. You get what I'm trying to say? In which people look up to you. They're coming to listen to you. I'm down. I'm depressed. I'm thinking about suicide. I need to see you living good.
Right.
Happy, smiling. I need to see you representing yourself as a Muslim, conducting yourself, and I need to see you speak with confidence and passion. So that in itself, that's a major battle of the nafs, the psycho-spiritual, battlefield in which humbling yourself, but at the same time, you are a leader. And people need the leader to be strong.
That's right.
And they need the leader to have strength. And I remember years ago, I was reading a novel, and the novel was about it was about naval warfare. It was a nuclear submarine and a captain and his crew, and they were in a very perilous situation. And you have the skipper, the captain, and you have the XO, the assistant imam, right? He's next in charge. So I remember, if my memory serves me correctly, the skipper was younger than the XO. Okay, so they were in a very bad situation. And one of the crew members, they asked the captain, and he basically, he said, I don't know what we're going to do next. So, all right, they went to the captain's stateroom, and the XO, he said, can I have a word with you, sir? Or he said, sure. He says, you can never, ever do that, what you just did. I won't tell you this in front of the men, but you can never, as the captain of the ship, you can never tell the crew you don't know what's next. You got to make something up. You got to figure it out. You can't show them that type of weakness.
Right.
Because they're only holding on because of
you.
All right, so you get the moral of the story. So the concept of leadership, like you said, authority, but at the same time, not transgressing the boundaries, becoming full of yourself and thinking that you're something special and looking at yourself as a servant of the people. But at the same time, people will check you and they'll challenge you, especially in New York City. And that's another discussion with regards to age. I'm relatively young. Obviously, when I started, I was even younger. The little hair I have now, I had nothing. So people automatically look at you young.
Yeah.
So if you're younger, then, you're this, you're that. Then you have the difference of race. Okay. You got people, New York City, multicultural, people from around the world. So this brother's from West Africa. He's from Yemen. He's from Bangladesh. This guy, he's a Black American. This is a white American. This is a Hispanic American. This person's from Iran. They're going to challenge you. And they hear you quote this and say, oh, man, and they're going to disrespect you. And if you show that weakness, if the sharks smell blood, you're done.
Yeah.
So it ain't about arrogance, but you got to say, whoa, you're not going to disrespect the knowledge.
That's right.
This is sacred. It's bigger than me and you. You're not going to disrespect it. I may take it, a little bit, but you're not going to disrespect it. So sometimes you got to check a little bit, not too much of a heavy hand, but sometimes you got to say, whoa, slow down. Don't come over here, saying this. You don't know anything. You didn't study anything. Where you come from means nothing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And, so it's a challenge.
Yeah.
And it's something that you got to constantly ask Allah to give you the balance and the help for. Wallahu alam.
What are some of the institutional challenges that we have in America, in New York City and Queens when it comes to how we go about this thing, the masjid? Like we see a lot of people complaining about masjid politics. We see a lot of people complain about everybody wants to split off, make their own masjid. You got a lot of people who want to collaborate. The youth want to have more empowerment, but they're not empowered. We got a lot of everybody has a hand in the soup, so to speak. What are some things that you see that we struggle with that we need to work on when it comes to institutionally?
First and foremost, I'm a big fan and a big supporter, a big proponent of the pop culture. Mm. And what I mean by pop culture is an acronym, POP, purity of philosophy. Mm-hmm. I think that's the biggest challenge. We have to have a pure philosophy. And if we're too weak to do something or too scared or things are different, the philosophy has to remain pure. This is the orthodox, pure, original teaching. Nothing else.
Not negotiable.
Nah. How we apply it, durura, haja, mashaqqa.
Exceptions.
The usul al-fiqh, no problem. But we cannot desecrate these sacred laws. And I think that's a big problem with different institutions. Because of the difficult situation they're in, they end up having tainted philosophy, quote unquote. Their usul, they're tainted. And obviously there are 1,000 examples of this. LGBTQ, XYZ, etc. Yeah. You get what I'm trying to say? How we deal with the situation practically, but this is what we believe.
Right. It's like there's the other night we were talking about this at the Mass Center. It was like, I told people up front, I said, this is not going to be a pastoral discussion. Because if you come into my office and you're struggling with something, I can treat you in a pastoral way. I can tend to you. You can be like one of the flock and I'm the shepherd, and that's a relationship. But when we're at the level of discourse, and we're at the level of ideas, and I'm at the level of, like you said, the knowledge, like this is what Islam is, then I got my knives out. You know what I mean? It's we're talking about now it's warfare. It's like we're talking about this is what it is, and we're going to defend it against outside threats or whatever. And that's kind of the terrain we're on. Mm-hmm. And it seems like there's a confusion of those two spaces. Yes. It seems like people get in front of a camera or they go on YouTube or whatever, and they got the pastoral sort of approach, but that doesn't necessarily work in front of a random anonymous audience when they're looking for leadership, they're looking for clarity, they are honestly confused as to what Islam actually says. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So, yeah,
that's a big problem. Number two, I would say Jahiliyyah. A lot of Jahiliyyah. We look at the narration of Abu Dharr radiallahu anhu, and, a lot of misconceptions concerning that narration. Did Abu Dharr disrespect Bilal? Or did he say, one of the early companions?
Right.
Okay. What's important is Abu Dharr, he said something that was wrong. Yeah. It was bad. And the Prophet ﷺ, he said, "Innaka rajulun fika jahiliyatun." Just stop. Pause the tape down. You are a man that has jahiliyyah in him. That's Abu Dharr al-Ghifari.
Yeah.
One thing, he was angry. Let's say he had an excuse. He could have been excused.
Yeah, right.
We got into a fight. Yeah. What did he say to me? What did he call me? I called him something back. Mm-hmm. And the Prophet, he said that about him. So just think about the jahiliyyah that we have in us, whether it is an issue of age. I'm older than you. You're younger than me. I'm from this race. I'm from this background. I'm from this state. We're the same race.
Yeah.
But I'm from this block. You from that block. That's jahiliyyah. And all of that filth, it finds its way into the masjids and the centers, the egos, the greed, the prejudice, the discrimination, the concept of, the whole feminism discussion, chauvinism, you're a woman, so automatically such and such, such and such.
Yeah.
Islam says nothing about sex here. It's not talking about Imam or Qadi. Islam says nothing about that. But you're just, so that's a problem. So the jahiliyyah, it has to be removed. And of course, we know that there's always going to be some jahiliyyah. The Prophet ﷺ tells us the 4 things from jahiliyyah that will always be in my ummah. But the jahiliyyah cannot be allowed to rear its ugly head when it wants to. It has to be scared and afraid on the side.
Yeah, it can't be systematic.
If
people are going to have their prejudices, and it's like
and it can't be allowed and supported.
Yeah.
So no matter what call we have of unity and cooperation, as long as we have that filth that we're not trying to rinse off and get rid of, we're going to be victims to jahiliyyah and the different types of jahiliyyah. You know what I'm saying? Like I said, nationalism, tribalism, so many different isms that exist in the masjids and in the schools and in the centers that defeat, that they puncture our tires. The tire is fully, the PSI is perfect, flat tire. Number 3, I would have to say that many people suffer from a proper Islamic financial and economic system. And what I mean by proper is you have people who have a lot of money, but the money isn't Islamic.
Right.
Or people who they're trying to be so Islamic and pure and this and that, they have no money. And money has to be at the forefront of everything. And living in Saudi, this is one of the lessons that you should learn. Jamia Islamiyya is based off of what? Money, that cash cow, a big fat heifer, in which gives endless amounts of milk.
Yep.
So where did that come from? And if whether you like it or not, your studies that you did in Saudi, if it wasn't for that money, you wouldn't have that scholarship.
Yep.
So the concept of the businesses, the entrepreneurship, the funding, the investments being clean from the haram, doubtful, dubious things. Because even if you have a madhab that it's lawful to use this type of money or to get this type of money, you're going to find detractors. And I've experienced this. You're going to find people that have skills and talents. Says, I don't want to deal with them because they're dealing with such and such.
Yeah.
And that person is needed in the community. So there has to be a system in which the money is earned, invested, spent, saved, whatever, properly and strongly. And that is going to support the masjid and prevent the people from having to beg. Yeah. And prevent the people from having to compromise. And that's a big problem that we have, compromising because of money. And the shaitan, we know, is one of his biggest tricks. And this is why Allah Azza wa Jal linked وَمَا خَلَقْتُ الْجِنَّ وَالْإِنسَ إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُونَ. And then after that, he talked about what? Risk. Yeah. Food. Yeah, food. I don't need you to pay. Right. And Allah, he mentioned this in the Quran. Do they have a debt that is heavy on their backs? Are you asking them, tas'aluhum, you asking them for money in which they're in debt? So the financial situation right now, not with all, but with many communities, I've been to many, it's very messy. It's very messy. Lack of transparency, people controlling wealth and running masjids like political centers instead of running a masjid like a masjid with the necessary political, right? So the ratio. Yeah. And there are many other things as well.
We're talking about some of the masjids that you are connected with personally. What's one thing that you're proud of that you think that your masjid does well that other masjids could take note of?
Integration with regards to culture and race. Definitely.
What do you do to facilitate that?
Well, first and foremost, I try my best to work on my jahiliyyah. And I try my best to remove and stifle that and not to look at people for any other reason or standard except for what they are, their character. You get what I'm trying to say? So in my masjid, in many parts of New York City, literally you have people from around the world, from Bangladesh, Yemen, Guyana, Trinidad, Jamaica. You have people from Palestine, Jordan. You have people from, Mexico, all over. So it's New York City. As it says, New York City, baby. It's New York. You get what I'm trying to say? What
Yeah.
are the values of New York? The different people who came to this city, poor immigrants with literally nothing. Literally, Ellis Island. You study the history of Ellis Island and the millions of Irish and German and Italian immigrants that came to the island, diseased, poor, dirty, mangy, had nothing. 20, 30, 40 years. Look what they established. And one of the reasons why they established that is that they knew the importance and the need of integrating. Is in Sicily. We're not back home, and this is New York. Things are different. And we have to mix. We have to cooperate. We have to do certain things. So I think that's one of the things I can be proud of is that in our masjid, we try our best. I can't praise and I can't claim perfection, but we try to move that stuff to the side. And we try to work with the people that we have to work with, whatever their race or their culture may be. And we try to let the knowledge and let the sunnah and let the teachings, let that be the thing that bonds us and links us together.
Yeah,
you get what I'm trying to
Definitely.
say? So it's not easy though.
Yeah, no, it's it's very, very sticky situation. That's one thing I picked up from Sheikh Abdullah Shankiti. I never saw him say anything negative about any place. And in fact, whenever he would meet somebody from a certain place, the first thing out of his mouth would be to praise something about that person's place. And that was something I benefited tremendously from because, you start following history, politics, like whatever. There's intrigue going on all over the world. But sometimes somebody feels a certain way if you bring that up. And a real easy way to just disarm tension is just, it's like, he had some Iraqis visit him and he said, oh, all of Nahu is Iraqi.
Allahu Akbar. That's right. That one little thing.
Just little thing. And you see just like the face and the whole demeanor, it just like disarms. And
you speak someone's native language.
Yeah.
You say hello.
Even a word.
They'll smile. Oh, you know Spanish? You know such and such? It's deep. It's
so
deep.
It's powerful, and I think that for Muslims, we have so much diversity, like more than like New York is like, is a thing, but even like wherever you go in the Muslim world, or let's say in North America, the Muslim community, like we have so much diversity that Christians will pay good money for.
That's right. That's right.
Or a college university, if they're putting out their promo brochures or whatever, they would pay money for the diversity that we have, right? But a lot of times we don't have that sensitivity where we're trying to actually learn. Well, Bangladesh, well, where's that? It's like, what's the capital of Bangladesh? It's like, well, how do they get
basic stuff?
Basic stuff. Like just to show that you take interest in your brother, your sister, where they come from, and things that shape them. That's a really, really important thing. So that's something that your community is doing well. What's something that you would love your community to improve on?
There are many things. I would just say to just take everything more seriously. Take it more serious. Yeah, and consistency and you can't be a Ramadan Muslim. You can't be an Eid Muslim. You can't be a Jumu'ah Muslim. Islam is 25/8. 25 hours out of the day, 8 days out of the week, 24/7. Illa wa antum muslimun. That's what that means. Never allow death to come to you except that you're prepared. So that's any community, but definitely, the hustle and the bustle, making money. Like I said, people say money is the root of all evil. And I read a tafsir of that, a refutation of that statement. One person said, no, money is the root of all evil. Mismanagement of money is the root of all evil. So people, they mismanage money because they're working, they're going to school, they're going to college, they're paying bills, and they're pampering their children. Right. I work so hard for my son to have everything, but that may be too much.
Yeah.
You take an hour off, sit in the masjid,
right?
Give your soul a break and see how good it feels.
Because there's no end to it. That's one thing, and you move in different circles, you see different people and people that are in different pay scales than myself. There's no end to the justification. For making more money and putting more money, especially to your kids. And that seems like a way that Shaitan actually often approaches people because he knows that you'll give everything for your kids.
That's right.
So now one fund becomes another fund, and this school becomes
a yacht.
It can keep on going. There's no end to it.
How much
is enough?
And the dunya just keeps changing and growing. So just take things more seriously, and just. For the students, if they're going to watch this, my students or the different brothers and sisters that I've taught and trained over the years, I'm teaching and training, is to be more dedicated. And don't quit. You can't give up. All I do is give a small little amount into your cup. The rest you got to fill up. and you got to take his legacy seriously, just like we had take it seriously. So if I had to say anything,
So one thing that I've seen in our community, okay, sometimes people imagine that they can simply approach the hadith, like open up al-Bukhari and pick one hadith out of it and then just run with it. Obviously, this is your specialty and this is your area. Is interpreting hadith or applying hadith that simple? Yes or no? Why or why not?
Understood. Excellent question. Very important question. And it's a twofold answer. It is and it isn't. There are no question about it. Many hadiths which are that simple and that plain, which you don't need to be a scholar or a specialist to understand and to practice them, for sure. And there are other hadiths which are technical, and hadiths which are part of, as you said, stories behind them. And we have, just like in the science of Quran, we have asbabul nuzul, reasons why the verses or the surahs were sent down. We have asbabul wurud wa asbabul tahdith. Two reasons that, and not too many people know this. One, why did the Prophet say these words? Whoever makes a sunnah in Islam, whoever brings this, it isn't from piety to fast while traveling. As an example. There's a reason why the Prophet said a context.
Yeah.
And then we have sabab al-tahdith is why the Sahabi passed on the hadith. After the Prophet's death, the Sahabi told one of the Tabi'in or another Sahabi about his hadith. A perfect example of this is when they went to visit Anas radiallahu anhu in his home, his qasr in Basra, and they complained about Hajjaj and what he was doing and how he was a butcher and how he was bloodthirsty and killing righteous ulama, people that were, big people. He was just, having no value or consideration for their blood. And he told them that the Prophet ﷺ, he said, Isbiru hatta talqawni ala al-hawd. He said, be patient until you meet me at my pond, at my hold. And he told them that the Prophet ﷺ said, a time will not come except that the year that follows is worse. So Anas radiallahu anhu, he had a reason why he passed on that hadith, not why the Prophet said it. So the moral of the story is not that hadith or the specific wordings, but just to show you is that there are hadiths that have context without a question, and they have histories behind them, and some people can misuse them, but it isn't a new thing. And many people, they think that it's a modern day thing. People have been abusing the text. And I think this is one of the most consistent types of behavior in human history is abuse of authority that is high and above.
Right.
Monotheistic or polytheistic religion. The gods have told me.
It's the best motivator.
The seer says this.
Yeah.
God himself told me. The Virgin Mary came to me.
Right. And people get it twisted and blame religion.
There you go.
It's about, actually, no, it's just that it's such a powerful motivator.
No question.
That everybody's going to want to abuse it.
So first and foremost, is this in the scripture? Is this in the sutras? Did the yogis or the, did they say this? That's number one. It is. It is found in the sutras. What's the context? The previous and the following passage. So that always has to be the twofold step. What did the Prophet actually say this? Did he quote what you're saying? Show me. Oftentimes people, they make up hadiths, or people, they'll chop up a hadith. So number one. Number two is the fiqh of the hadith. Is it a narration which is clear and plain? The Prophet ﷺ was asked, what is the most frequent reason behind going to paradise? He said, taqwallahi wa husnul khuluq, fear of Allah and good character. There isn't no scholastic interpretation for that.
Right.
Good character.
Yeah.
And fear Allah. And he says, he was asked, what is the most frequent reason behind people entering hell? And he said, al-famu wal-farj, the mouth and the private part. That's plain and simple. But there are other narrations which are technical, and which there are other hadiths, conflicting hadiths, etc. So there are things that need to be detailed, for sure. And you can't just run off of a cliff off of one thing that you read. There's no doubt about that. However, many people, they have this attitude that the default is their opinion.